This is the Yorkshire Voice Newscast, brought to you by Leeds Trinity University.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of our Yorkshire Voice Newscast. I'm Riccardo Trono and I will be your host today. We have plenty of things and news in store for you during our program. We'll be bringing you the latest news and views from across the region and beyond too, as Europe gears up for the announcement of the by now famous travel green list set to be unveiled by the government later today. We'll also be giving you the latest updates on an arrest taking place in Leeds yesterday over sexual assault allegations. We'll be talking to an arts producer from the Brick Box Arts Cooperative in Bradford about the Manifest project, which aims to creatively transform the city as it gradually finds its way out of the pandemic. We'll be listening to some good music now the youth orchestras have resumed live rehearsals. Moreover, as the 36th anniversary of the Valley Parade fire disaster approaches, we'll be honoring the memory of the tragic event with a package created by a sports reporter. As hinted at before, a man has been arrested by detectives investigating a serious sexual assault on women in Leeds yesterday. Our reporter Thomas Wooden has the latest on this.
Yesterday at 7:49 a.m, West Yorkshire Police had issued concerns for a woman's safety who had left St Anne's Lane, Headingley, in a car with a man. The woman, aged in her 30s, was later found in Armley and reported to have been the victim of a serious sexual assault. Following the result of inquiries, a 37-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of kidnap and rape, as well as suspicion of rape in relation to an incident in Holbeck Park. He remains in custody and inquiries are ongoing.
It is the last chance this week for people to get their ideas in as part of a special arts project in Bradford where people can reimagine spaces in the city. It's called Manifest and it's the brainchild of arts cooperative Brick Box, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary. It's a chance for people to let their imaginations take flight and conjure up new creative ways of seeing the city's buildings. In a moment, we'll hear from Brick Box. But to give you an idea of the kinds of things people have been coming up with, is a contribution from Martha Keane, one half of Bradford duo Lala and the Booyah.
If I had a massive old empty building with spaces where we could play, I'd keep it quite empty so it's versatile and people can use it in their own ways. Loads of lecky points and a kitchen essential, a back room where we stash the rig, purpose-made awnings to cover the yard for outdoor do's and cigs. It'd be like a DIY BYO thing, avoiding them words that are pukey, like pop-up and hub, more like a squat. Free space offering a core duty. Free space, free space, free space, free space. If we had a massive old empty building, think of the things we could do. And it's bonkers, there's loads that are doing naught that would house you and your crew. But we give it up for the fear of the law and the red tape and consultants. And it's hard when you're skinned to not feel the case that the property men are all dull.
Piece of music there could hardly help dancing on the chair. Lots of reaction to that on social media. Do check out the hashtag Manifest Bradford for more contributions. But let's hear now from Harry Jelly, arts producer who's behind the Manifest project. I spoke to him earlier and asked to tell me a bit more about this idea.
Is a project all about dreaming up the city that we want Bradford to be, and it's really about wild dreams about what the city could be, really creative responses to how we can change Bradford. So what we wanted to do was create a project that would encourage people to respond through art, so through drawing, through writing. We've had video responses to places in the city that maybe are unloved or unused, which there are quite a few in Bradford currently. And we've been commissioning artists throughout the process to get the public's creative ideas flowing, but we've had loads and loads of community responses as well, and they've included things like swimming pools on the tops of car parks. We've had ideas like turning the Forster Square arches into some fantastical departure lounge where you can go anywhere. We've had some really amazing ideas in response to Manifest.
Sounds very interesting. And I have two questions for you now. The first one is, what do you think is the main thing that inspires this creativity in the people of Bradford? And second, do you have a favorite, in all the audio files, video files, pictures that you've received from the community?
So I think that really what's got people thinking so creatively about this is that Bradford has so many opportunities when it comes to how we can reimagine the city. I mean, there's a lot to be done, and we found a lot of these unused spaces to spark that imagination. But I think people in this city love the city. Bradford's an amazing place, and I think we all want to see a brighter and more creative and more engaged city in the future. And I think also just the challenge of there being or the challenge that we've set of dreaming big, I think that's been so much of a part of it. People haven't been restricted by what is possible or what is practical. Lucy Barker's commission response was to put a tropical Lido at the heart of the city. And I just really loved that idea. And obviously it would be very difficult to make happen. It may be not impossible, but just that challenge of saying, you can do anything that you want. I think that gets people thinking. And we all dream as we walk around cities, and we all think about what if this was like that, and what if this was different in some way. So it's just a way of getting those dreams and the ways that we think about our cities, recorded in some way creatively.
Yeah, so are you satisfied with the level of engagement that you found on the part of the community?
Yeah, we've been really pleased with the responses that we've got from people. The amount of imagination out there is incredible, and we've loved seeing what people have been sending in. It's just great to log on to our social media and see a new idea for a part of the city that we hadn't necessarily wouldn't have come to think about without opening up to the public to respond creatively. So yeah, we've loved seeing all those responses. People have really outdone themselves with dreaming big about Bradford, and I hope one day we can make some of these things come true.
Definitely. And last question now is looking at the long-term future of this project. So with Bradford beginning to be the UK City of Culture in 2025, was it a factor in your decision to launch this project? Do you think that it might lead to it?
I think there's loads of activity happening currently in Bradford, loads of amazing arts projects, loads of amazing cultural activity. I think that we're all trying to celebrate Bradford as much as we can, and there are lots of things to celebrate. And the future of this project, I mean, we're committing to making one of these things happen. We haven't quite worked out how we're going to make one of these things happen, because some of them are very challenging. But once the project's over at the end of this week, we're going to look at all of the submissions from everybody and commit to making one of these dreams come true.
Let's get back to music now. Bradford's Youth Wind Orchestra, along with other orchestras and bands, have finally been able to return to in-person rehearsals after a year spent on Zoom. For big ensembles like the Wind Orchestra, this meant ensuring rehearsals were COVID secure by introducing bubbles and spacing between players. Our reporter Sarah Jewers went along to the weekly Thursday rehearsal at Tidal Soul School to get a feel of how current restrictions still affect how a 30-piece orchestra rehearses and what the members of the orchestra missed most when apart.
When a global pandemic forced us all into lockdown, orchestra and band rehearsals had to move online. They had to move on to platforms like Zoom, with only the conductor being off mute. Bradford's Youth Wind Orchestra are finally back to in-person rehearsals and have been for nearly 4 weeks now. Conductor Helen Borg and members of the orchestra explained what adjustments had to be made and what they missed the most.
I think the first week was a bit chaotic because they all sit in the same seat every week, and it was getting them all into that seat so that they could remember that. But now it's a lot easier. They go in, they know exactly where they're going to sit. They know to stay 2 meters apart. They know where the hand drill is. They know the routine. And I think now that we've all got that routine, like 3 or 4 weeks in, it's a lot easier.
It feels, well, it's as normal as we can be, so it doesn't feel bad at all, actually. Because it's not the same when you sat by yourself in the living room.
I would give myself a headache after all the pressure from the trumpet, and I would end up with burning eyeballs and a massive headache from the computer and the trumpet.
It's nice to be able to be in person, but yes, it is weird social distancing from the people you see all the time.
Things that we've missed is just realising how, as musicians, it's just so nice to play together. And a lot of the instruments, particularly in a wind band, are instruments that are meant to be played with other instruments. So sat there doing your own practice, and I don't know whether you felt it was, you had to be very, very disciplined to do your own practice when the reason why you play is to play with other people, and that bit has just completely been cut out of it for such a long time.
Oh, yes, I agree. For me, music and being in bands is such a big part of my life. It felt like something was missing during the lockdowns because I couldn't play with other people.
The majority of the time we're doing it so we can play with people, play music that we like, all the harmonies, which give you goosebumps.
I think when we got back, the biggest thing for me was hearing that harmony that we hadn't heard for 12 months. And I think it took us all a little bit by surprise how much it filled the room, because we almost forgot what it sounded like to have that harmony of different instruments playing together.
It is hoped rehearsals can remain in person from now on, and that in the near future players can sit closer together. It is not yet known what the long-term impact of lockdown will be on these youth ensembles and young people's musical development. However, it is clear that Helen and the members of the Bradford Youth Wind Orchestra are excited, if not extremely relieved, to be back.
That was a lovely piece of music there, Viva la Vida indeed, as we are going to enter summer. You've just heard Bradford Youth Wind Orchestra playing a version of Coldplay's Viva la Vida. Next week marks the anniversary of a big day in the history of Bradford City. On Saturday, the 11th of May 1985, a fire broke out at Valley Parade, killing 56 and injuring over 250. Our reporter Tom Heath looks back on the fire and its legacy on both the city of Bradford and the football club.
We've actually got a fire in the stand on the far side of the ground, and that looks very nasty indeed. Now the police have gone over there to try and quell the fire, and they're frantically getting some of the supporters out. Now these are extraordinary scenes at Valley Parade. It's supposed to be a day of celebration.
The fire took just minutes to break out, and a day which should have seen Bradford triumphantly lift the 3rd Division trophy is now dedicated to those who tragically lost their lives in the fire. Christian Oldcorn is a Bradford City fan who was there that day.
The first thing I can remember is noticing that a few people ran onto the pitch, followed by my dad literally grabbing me by the scruff of the back of my neck and rushing onto the pitch. He was wearing a long coat, which he tried to put me under so that I didn't see very much. Sadly, I saw and heard and experienced things that I wish I hadn't.
They came to celebrate the club's promotion to the 2nd Division for the first time in 50 years, and now they're running for their lives. And this is a burning hell. The police desperately trying to save the life of a supporter. He'd come to watch the football. This is human tragedy.
As the images of the fire were projected across the country, families and friends of supporters who were at the game had no way of knowing if their loved ones were safe.
The only means that people had to contact home, in a lot of cases, were payphones. Also, the houses around the area of Valley Prince, it's a built-up area. It's rows after rows of terrace houses, and the local community were mainly South Asian people from of Pakistani and Bangladeshi origin. They literally opened their doors, got the kettles on, went out to people, enabled them to use their phones. There were people queuing out of homes, just making those phone calls home to tell the families they were safe.
The legacy of the fire continues to hold a strong place within both the football club and the city of Bradford. The Bradford Burns unit was established in the aftermath of the fire and continues to be a focal point for fundraising and charity work within the city.
Most of the people who were injured were severely burnt, and they were taken to hospitals in Bradford, and the people at the two main Bradford hospitals gained an expertise of dealing with certain types of burns, which has led to the big legacy of the positive, really, of what has happened is the burns unit. It's world renowned. It's got a worldwide reputation for plastic surgery and burns. And each year, the big focus from most of the fans is on raising funds for that, and that's the memorial that keeps on going.
That was a deeply poignant and moving package from our reporter, Tom Heath. Thanks, Tom. We, the young generations, have a duty to preserve the memory of what happened today so that, it doesn't happen in the future. Never again. David Nowakowski is a Bradford City fan raising money for the Bradford Burns unit in commemoration of the fire. This version of You'll Never Walk Alone features David and Andy Ruddy, who are both fans of the club, as well as members of the DMP Young Voices Choir from Dixon's Music Primary School in Bradford. A digital version of the charity single can be downloaded for £1.99 from the Bradford City website, with all proceeds going to the Bradford Burns unit. We move to one section of travel now. After a hectic Super Thursday with local elections in England, the nation is now gearing up for the announcement of the Travel Green List. A handful of destinations should receive the go-ahead for quarantine-free travel after May the 17th. Among the potential candidates are places with low COVID rates, cases and high vaccination rates, such as Gibraltar, Israel, Portugal, the Balearic and Greek islands. Other big European holiday hotspots, such as Italy, France, mainland Spain and Greece, look poised to be added later on in June, as the list is going to be reviewed every 3 weeks. Italy, in particular, has been the latest country in Europe to announce it will open up to international tourists from mid-May, thanks to the introduction of a Green Pass, which will prove people have a negative COVID test, been vaccinated or recovered from coronavirus. This announcement by the country's PM Mario Draghi is a major and much-needed boost for our tourism sector that has taken the brunt of the economic crisis caused by the pandemic. This morning, I have talked to Alda Miraglia, Sales and Marketing Manager of CDS Hotels, a popular chain of hotels along the Mediterranean coast of Apulia and Sicily in southern Italy, which normally hosts tourists from all over the world during the sun-kissed Italian summer.
My name is Alda Miraglia. I've been working for over 30 years in CDS Hotels as Sales and Marketing Manager. CDS Hotels is a hotel chain with 12 hotels in Puglia and Sicily. Most of them are seaside hotels.
Perfect, thank you. And second question has to do with international tourism in general. So what have international tourists, obviously we know they're a big part of our summertime, so to say. So what have they represented, in particular British tourists, for you over the years? Can you talk to us about, the impact they would normally have on an area and your businesses as well?
Depending on the period, we have about 30% or 90% of foreign tourists in our hotels. British tourists account for about 10% of these averages. So they are very important for us. They come individually and in tailored groups. We usually have more groups in the low season and individual English guests throughout the season from spring to fall.
The next question has to do with the effects of the pandemic. So with the last extraordinary, so to say, past year that we all lived through, and how did you deal with the effects of this pandemic? Last summer, we know that the country reopened after the strict 2-month lockdown, but the joy was short-lived because right at the start of autumn, the country plunged into the second wave and basically tourism all but ended there. So how do you cope with that?
As we know, the effects of the pandemic have been disastrous. Last year, all the spring bookings up to July have been cancelled. We immediately activated the anti-COVID measures, but it was not enough. Our hotels reopened in the end of June. This year, the situation is different. We already have reservations, and one of our hotels is already open just 3 days ago, and the others will open by the end of May. Fortunately, the situation is very different this year, and we have the anti-COVID measures exactly like last year, last 2020.
Final question is, obviously we know that anytime today, the famous by now green list is going to be announced by the UK government. So from the sound of it, Italy, as well as most of Europe, should be placed into the green list from June. So if that is hopefully going to happen, what would that mean for the tourism sector as a whole? So obviously to your area, so the hospitality sector, hotels, pubs, restaurants, but also for arts, culture, museums, seaside mountains, etc. Like, what would it mean to the famous tourism sector in Italy?
It is certainly an excellent news for all of us, for all our sector. Is even more important the proposal of our Premier Mario Draghi about the Italian Green Pass, which will be activated from May 15, just a month before the Green Pass, the European Green Pass. It is a help mainly for all the city hotels that have lost the 90% in the past 2020. The tourists will be able to come to Italy without quarantine, only presenting a negative COVID test or the proof they had the COVID-19, or they are vaccinated. So we hope with the Green Pass, the Italy Green Pass and the European Green Pass, that English tourists will soon return to Italy and to the city of hotels, obviously in Puglia and Sicily. This is our goal, certainly.
After talking about the sun and the hot Italian summer on the Mediterranean coast, let us finish today's program with just as lovely weather here in Yorkshire. Sunshine and showers are both forecast for today. The showers will be heavy at times, and there also might be the risk of hail and thunder. The showers may turn a little wintry at times, especially over higher ground. Today's maximum temperature in Leeds is set to be around 10 degrees. The minimum will be around 3, summertime. Thank you very much for listening, and I really hope you've enjoyed the program despite my final weather forecast. I hope you have a good rest of the day and a lovely weekend. Ciao!
This is Leeds Trinity University.